Hi everyone, I hope everyone's doing well during this time of quarantine. I've decided for my project to be about the agricultural industry in Spain, specifically the pork industry. So I'm going to list why I chose it, why it's so important to the Spanish culture as well as the economy. And if you guys have any feedback at all, please let me know. I'd really appreciate anything you guys can provide. So anyway, why I chose to focus on the pork industry is because during my time as a student there, I realized how often you find it at the supermarket or at the restaurant. It's such a big part of the culture there. And it turns out it's actually part of the intangible cultural heritage by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. So basically that means that it's an intangible heritage, such as folklore or oral tradition passed on. Because it's such a big part of the culture there, the United Nations actually protects how the pork industry is part of the Mediterranean diet. And it's important to maintain cultural diversity during this time of globalization. So I thought that was actually pretty interesting to include. In terms of origin, I actually talked to the vendors at the Boqueria and asked where they source their meat. And the vendors there actually told me that the pork that they sell is actually grown in southern Spain, and there are two types. There's Jamón Ibérico, which is probably what is commonly known to tourists as what's authentic to Spain, as well as Jamón Serrano. Jamón Ibérico is from the Black Iberian pig, and that pig feasts on acorns and lives on flat land, as opposed to the white pig, which lives in the mountains and is actually a hybrid, making it a little bit cheaper. So more pork from Jamón Serrano is actually consumed and sold in Spain. I also want to talk about the environmental strides that Spain has made in their agriculture industry, and specifically the pork industry. It turns out that Spain is a global leader in terms of meat quality, safety, and traceability, and it follows the European production model. It was actually the first country in the EU to implement the European production model, making them a global leader in terms of sustainability. Animal health is a big requirement for this model, and so everything should be easily traced during the process, whether it be from the live pig living in the farm to the cured ham sold in the market. Every step of the process should easily be traced and sourced. It should be very clear and transparent, and no leeway for confusion there. On top of that, the agriculture industry has also been able to reduce ammonia emissions by 47%, according to the Ministry of Agriculture, Fishing and Food, as well as reduce methane emissions by 55% through manure management. And I feel like these positive externalities aren't necessarily shown in profit or revenue, so I felt like it was really important to include because it shows that you could still be productive while still being efficient and environmentally responsible. The director of Interpork, which is the entity that represents all white pork sold in Spain, said, "When things are done, an increase in production goes hand in hand with greater efficiency and a smaller environmental impact." And then so, as you can see, it's very important to the culture and the social responsibility of Spain, but it's actually another big part of the economy, which is what I'm going to focus on now. So there are actually two really big pork producing countries in the EU, Germany and Spain. Germany is number one and Spain is number two. But despite Spain being number two, it's actually a little more reliant on the pork industry than Germany is. It's their number one export, even above wine, and it's their most consumed food in Spain. About 20% of the food industry is for pork, and it accumulates about 21,164 million euros yearly, which is about 2% of GDP. After cars, petrol, and energy, it's actually their fourth most important sector. And that has actually substantially grown within less than 100 years. In 1954, the industry has grown substantially from 9 slaughterhouses to 700, and from 615 factories to over 2,400. And so I would appreciate any feedback you guys can provide on this. I was planning to compare how important the pork is in Spain to another commodity in a different economy. So I was thinking, can pork in Spain be comparable to another product or food specific to another country, whether it be in the EU or outside of the EU? And as I've stated previously, Spain is a global leader in terms of the European production model. They're very sustainable, so I was wondering if I should base their sustainable strides from the US agricultural system, or if I should choose another country in the US as well, in the EU as well. I would appreciate any feedback you guys can provide, and I wish you all good luck on your paper. Thanks.